Dun dun dun! Look how cute this mug rug is gonna be. Let's go make it. But first, always remember to share this so it will save to your profile and you can find it when you're looking for it again later. I started with the Cozy Cups mini quilt and mug rug pattern, and Missouri Star is giving you a free download. There's a link in the caption that takes you to this free download and also to the Sugarberry collection of fabrics that I'm using. I hope you love them as much as I do. Missouri Star Quilt Company said, Tam, can we send you some patterns and you make them? And I said, absolutely. They sent me this one, and when I first opened it up, it's a lot of cutting. But then once I got started, it's really not that bad, I promise. We're going to make the 9 patch mug rugs that look like this. This is what we're making today. So I have cut all of my fabrics for all of these projects at the same time, and I labeled them with the size and the fabric that they are. And I stored them all in my handy dandy dish tub. We have a fabric key on page 13 for your convenience. You may find it helpful to label and stack your fabrics as you cut to stay organized. That's what we've done. And they also have a fabric key showing you how to cut your fabric out of your 5-inch squares so you get the most out of every square. Now I know this needed 5-inch squares because it says right here, project pattern for 5-inch squares. We've cut all our fabrics. Let's see what we do first. Make the 9 patch mug rugs. Arrange 5 2-inch fabric B and 4 2-inch fabric E squares in a 9 patch formation as shown. Okay, here's our photo, just like this. So I'm gonna find 2-inch by 2-inch fabric B and 2-inch by 2-inch fabric E. Now I had to read on down to tell me how many I was making. I'm actually making 3 of these. So I'm gonna do this 3 times because we're making 3 of these. Now, I know y'all are just like me, and I was trying to use up all of my scraps. So I cut 2 inches by 2 inches out of 2 separate fabrics, but you can do it out of the same fabric. That's totally fine. Use what you have or get this. Either way, super cute. That is my 5 2 by 2 inch B squares. Now let's do 4 2-inch by 2-inch fabric E squares. And I know this is 2 by 2 in fabric E because of my terrible handwriting on here. This is 1 block, this is 1 block, and this is 1 block. So the first thing we're gonna do is sew the squares together in rows. So I'm going to pick this up and sew that pretty side to pretty side. I'm gonna open it back up, and then I'm going to lay it down again and sew this pretty side to pretty side. I'm gonna do that for these 3 rows, and then these 3 rows, and then these 3 rows. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. Because my grandma said so. These are adorable, like super adorable for mug rugs, but they would make a precious pot holder. Or how cute would this be on a hand towel? Or in the wintertime on your wall flag? I can already think of a whole bunch of uses for this patchwork piece. But whatever you make, be sure to email a photo to hometownquiltcompany@gmail.com because I want to see, and so does everybody else. Y'all are inspiring people every single day with your creativity, your fabric choices, and your projects, and we all want to see all of them. We've sewn them. We've sewn our pieces together. And I clipped mine each 3 rows together because my fabrics aren't exactly the same. I have 2 different fabrics, and do you see how this red is the top and the bottom of both pieces, and then this red is the center? And I didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel. So if you're using all of the same fabrics, it doesn't matter. But if you're doing like me, clip your rows together so you know what goes where. Okay, we've sewn it into rows. Now it says, press the rows in opposite directions, nest the seams, and sew the rows together. We are going to press them, but we're not nesting, and we're not pressing them in opposite directions. I mean, they might naturally land in opposite directions, but not because we're trying to. But if you want to press yours in opposite directions, I want you to. And if you want to nest your seams, I want you to do that too. I'm going to press each block and clip it back together so that I know what goes where. We have got 3 9-patch blocks. We're actually gonna make these coffee cups, which are super cute. We're gonna sew these together, and then we're gonna make the handles. And then we're gonna sew that together. Now we've pressed them, now we're gonna sew our rows together. So I'm gonna take the first block, and I'm gonna lay it out the way that it's supposed to look, like that. Because if you sew these two together, not what you're going for. Perfectly fine, but not what you're going for. So we're gonna lay it down just like this. I'm gonna lay the first block. I'm gonna lay the first row pretty side down on top of the second row that's pretty side up. And I'm gonna sew right here. And then I'm gonna open that up, and then I'm gonna lay the bottom row pretty side down on top of the middle row that's pretty side up, and I'm gonna sew right here. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop, just like always. Now, I'm gonna do all 3 of my blocks. And when I'm sewing, don't look at your needle. That's the best piece of advice my grandmother ever gave me, was to stop looking at my needle. When you put your rows together, you want these seams to match. And maybe they'll nest naturally, maybe they won't. Nesting simply means that your seams are going in opposite directions. Do you see how this seam goes this way and this seam goes this way? But down here, we are not nested. Do you see how both of my seams are going in the same direction? And I don't care. If you care, I want you to iron yours in opposite directions so that they nest. But what I do want you to do is make sure your seams line up. I don't care what you have to do to get it there. Pinch it, pleat it, pull it. But we do want our seams to match. This seam and this seam. I said that was the best piece of advice my grandmother ever gave me, but that's probably not true. The best piece of advice was to backstitch. The second best piece was to stop looking at my needle. And the third best piece of advice, to leave the tension alone. Stop touching the tension, Tammy. It should be at all day. Your sewing machine should not have tension trouble. If you've got tension trouble, you've got bigger issues. I said, Grandma, it won't work. She said, I know. Stop touching it. And turns out she was right. But she was a really smart lady. It says nest the seams together. We didn't do that. Sew the rows together. We did do that. Now press. So we're going to iron our blocks again. Now, I'm not ironing my seams open or even necessarily to one side, but I want you to iron them any way that you want to. Mark a diagonal line on the reverse side of 6 1.5 inch background squares. Let's find a 1.5 inch square. And a Sharpie. Don't yell at me. I need 6 of these. 2, 4, 6, and a ruler. So we're going to lay our squares upside down, and we're going to draw a diagonal on the back of them. Place 2 marked squares, right sides facing, atop both the bottom corners of the 9-patch unit. Sew on the marked lines, then trim the excess fabric away. What that is saying is to lay this down like this in the corner, and we're going to sew on the line that we drew, and we're going to cut that off, fold it over, and iron it down. We're going to do that on all 3 blocks. But now listen, it is important, if you sew your square this way, it's going to be a hot wreck. So make sure that your diagonal line is going in the right direction and that your square is all the way at the bottom corner of your block. You want all of the raw edges to be together. Lay it down just like that, and we're going to sew all 4 corners. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. And you're going to sew on the lines that you drew. Now, I'm not pinning mine, but if you want to, I want you to. I'm not even clipping them really good. I'm just adding a couple so when I get to it, I'll know where it goes and in what direction it goes. Okay, place 2 marked squares, right sides facing, which means pretty side to pretty side, on both the bottom corners of the 9-patch. Sew on the marked lines, trim the excess fabric away, press. So now we're going to open this up and press this on all 3. Make the handles. So a 1 by 1.5 inch fabric D rectangle. Let's find fabric D. 1 by 1.5. Okay, so we need 3 of these because we're making 3. 1 by 1.5 inch fabric D rectangle to a 1.5 inch background square as shown. All right, let's see. Let's find a 1.5 inch. I need 3 of these. Now it says to make 6, but we're going to do the other mug rugs in a few minutes. We're going to finish these first. So we're just doing 3 of these. So instead of 6, I only need 3. I'm going to sew this like this. Pretty side to pretty side. Back stitching when I start and when I stop. I'm going to chain piece mine, and I'm going to back stitch when I start and when I stop on all 3 of these Because y'all know my grandma made me scared. And some people don't backstitch when they chain stitch, and that's okay. I guess, maybe. I'm sure it works for them or they wouldn't do it, but it's not the way that I do it. 1x2 fabric D rectangle. Let's find a 1x2 fabric D rectangle. Okay, that's this one. We need, it says make 6 handle tops, but we're just making 3. And it says make 6 handle bottoms, but we're just making 3. So we're gonna do 6 total because they're exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we're gonna take 6 1x1 inch marked squares. So what it's telling you to do is draw a diagonal on here, and we're gonna sew it just like we sewed that a minute ago. I'm not marking all my squares because I'm pretty confident I can sew this line straight because there's just not much there, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So we're going to line it up like this. We're going to lay it at the top, and do you see how my line goes from here to here? We're going to sew that and then cut off the excess. You're going to do 3 of them like this, and then you're going to do 3 of them like this, because one is the handle top and the second one is the handle bottom. So do 3 of them one way and then 3 of them the other way. Straight stitch, back stitching when you start and when you stop. Sewing directly on the line that you just drew, or if you're like me, just sewing in the center. All right, so this is what we have. This is our handle bottom, and this is our handle top. Sew the rows together. So we're gonna sew, this is the center of our handle, this is the bottom of our handle, and this is the top of our handle. We're going to sew all of these. Did I sew that wrong, y'all? That is correct, and that is correct. What do I have going on here? That is correct, and that is correct. Okay, so I had these two mixed up, and it would not match up. It wouldn't make a handle. Now, how I'm gonna sew these is the same way. I'm gonna fold one over, pretty side to pretty side. I'm gonna sew down this side, and then I'm gonna open it, and I'm gonna lay this one up and sew that side. I'm gonna do this to all 3 blocks, or all 3 cup handles. Okay, so it shows we need to make 3 cup handles, 2 going one way and 1 going the other way. We're gonna add a 2 by 1 1/4 rectangle to the top, and a 2 by 2 1/4 rectangle to the bottom of all 3 of these. I'm gonna put this on the top and this on the bottom of all 3 of these, just like this. Same way, pretty side to pretty side, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. And then we're gonna iron them. It says assemble the mug blocks. Arrange the handle units and mug units as shown. Sew the units together and press. Okay, so here's one, and then this one goes the other way, like that. So you're gonna sew these 3. Pretty side to pretty side, straight stitch, back stitch when you start and when you stop, 1/4 inch seam, and if they're not perfect, it's fine. We'll trim them up, or not. Totally up to you. Now, if you continue down this page, it's telling you what to do to get you ready for your mini quilt. But we're gonna put this block to the side, shows 1 of each. This one, this is gonna go in our mini quilt. So these are the 2 blocks that we have left for our mug rugs. Then we're gonna skip back over here to page 11. So a 1 1/2 by 6 1/2 background rectangle to the top, and a 1 by 6 1/2 background rectangle to the bottom of the 9-patch mug. So this 1 1/2 by 6 1/2 is going on the top, and a 1 by 6 1/2 is gonna go on the bottom. I'm gonna lay this pretty side to pretty side. I'm gonna sew here and here, here and here, here, and it was right the first time, and here. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop, because my grandma said so. We've assembled them. We're gonna turn to page 11, to section 9 over here, to this paragraph, because we're just doing these mug rugs. For the mug rugs, gather 4 1 inch by 6 1/2 inch background rectangles. So I'm setting one of these blocks apart for the mug, and I'm going to use 2 of them for mug rugs. Let's see which one they have set apart. Looks like this one. So I'm going to set this one to the side, and we're going to complete these 2 mug rugs. 4 1 by 6.5 inch background pieces, and sew that to both sides of each mug rug. So it's actually going to go on this side and this side, so that the mug rug has a border all the way around it. Pretty side to pretty side, straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. Y'all meet me right back here, and we're going to make the second set of mug rugs. We're going to quilt all of them. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to finish them, and then we're going to make our mini quilt. This is what we have so far. My name is Tammy. I'm your favorite sewing teacher, and I would love for you to come sew with me.